My name is Hazel. I am 32 years old and I live in a quiet suburb near Seattle. I stood in the crowded hallway of the county courthouse. My hands were cold, but my mind was perfectly clear. Kevin, my husband of 7 years, leaned in close to my ear. He didn't want the lawyers or the strangers around us to hear. He wanted this poison to be just for me. "I'll take everything from you, Hazel," he whispered. His voice was low and nasty. "Today is the best day of my life because it's the day I finally leave you with nothing." He pulled back and looked at me. He was smiling. Behind him stood Sophie. She was younger than me, wearing a bright red dress that looked wrong for a serious place like this. She smiled too, like the ending of our story was already written and she had won. Kevin expected me to cry. He expected me to beg him for mercy or scream at him in front of everyone. That is what he thought I would do. But I didn't say a word. I just looked at him. Kevin thought my silence was fear. He didn't know that I had been preparing for this moment for 6 months. He didn't know about the thick folder in my bag. He thought he was the hunter, but he had no idea he was actually the prey. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Hazel. I am 32 years old. Kevin pulled away from my ear. He stood up straight and adjusted his expensive suit jacket. He bought that suit 3 months ago. He told me it was an investment for a big client meeting. I knew now that the client was Sophie. He looked down at me. I was sitting on a hard wooden bench outside the courtroom doors. I felt small. I have always been a small woman, but Kevin knew how to make me feel invisible. "Cat got your tongue, Hazel?" he asked. He said it loud enough for the people nearby to hear. He wanted an audience. He wanted everyone to see him as the strong, confident man leaving his weak wife. I looked up at him. His face was handsome, the same face I fell in love with 8 years ago, but his eyes were hard. There was no kindness left in them for me. I didn't answer his question. I just folded my hands in my lap. My knuckles were white, but my face was calm. I practiced this face in the bathroom mirror this morning. I told myself, do not let him see you shake. Do not let him see the crack in your heart. Kevin laughed. It was a short, cruel sound. "Look at her," he said to Sophie, who was standing just behind his shoulder. "She's terrified. She knows she's done for." Sophie giggled. It was a light, airy sound that didn't belong in this heavy hallway. She looked at me like I was something sad by the side of the road. A piece of trash someone dropped. "Don't be too mean, Kevin," Sophie said. Her voice was fake sweet. "It's a hard day for her." She didn't mean it. She just wanted to sound nice for the lawyers walking by. I saw the smirk she gave me when Kevin wasn't looking. She was wearing a gold bracelet. I recognized it instantly. It was the first piece of evidence I had found. Seeing it on her wrist made my stomach turn over. It felt like a physical punch, but I didn't react. I breathed in slow. I breathed out slow. Kevin's lawyer arrived. He was a loud man with a shiny briefcase. He shook Kevin's hand vigorously. "Ready to wrap this up, Kevin?" the lawyer asked. "More than ready," Kevin said. He clapped his lawyer on the back. "Let's get in there and finish it. Hazel is ready to sign whatever we put in front of her. Aren't you, honey?" He used the pet name like a weapon. He was trying to bait me. He wanted me to snap. He wanted me to cause a scene so he could point his finger and say, "See, she's crazy. She's emotional." I remained silent. I kept my eyes focused on the scuffed floor tiles. My silence began to bother him. I could feel it. He stopped laughing. He started shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He checked his watch 3 times in 1 minute. Kevin was used to me trying to fix things. Throughout our marriage, if he was mad, I would apologize. If he was worried, I would comfort him. If he was yelling, I would try to calm him down. I was always the one reacting to his moods. Now I wasn't reacting at all. I was a stone wall. He leaned down again, his voice a tight hiss. "Say something, damn it. Stop looking like a kicked puppy, it's pathetic." I lifted my chin and met his eyes. I didn't blink. I didn't frown. I just looked at him with total emptiness. "We are due in court, Kevin," I said. My voice was soft, but it was steady. It didn't shake. That was all I said. He blinked. He looked confused. He expected fear, and I gave him nothing. "Yeah, we are," he muttered. He straightened up, but some of the swagger was gone from his shoulders. He looked back at Sophie, almost like he needed reassurance. She gave him a quick, tight smile, but she looked uneasy too. They didn't understand what was happening. They thought my silence was weakness. They thought I was frozen with terror because they were about to take my home, my savings, and my future. They were wrong. My silence wasn't fear, it was focus. I was holding all the noise inside me. The anger, the hurt, the betrayal, it was all screaming inside my chest. But I wouldn't let it out. Not here, not in front of him. He needed my reaction to feel powerful. By giving him silence, I was taking his power away before we even stepped into the courtroom. He just didn't realize it yet. The bailiff opened the heavy oak doors. "All parties for Bennett versus Bennett," he called out. Kevin took a deep breath and puffed out his chest. He grabbed Sophie's hand for a second, then let go as they walked toward the door. He looked back at me one last time with a sneer. I stood up slowly. I picked up my large tote bag. It was heavy with paper. It contained the truth about our marriage. I walked behind them. I was alone. I felt an overwhelming sadness wash over me, a wave so big I thought I might drown in it right there in the hallway. This was the end of the life I thought I was building. But then I felt the weight of the bag in my hand. The evidence, the proof. I wasn't just a victim walking to the slaughter. I had a weapon of my own. I took another deep breath, pushed the sadness down into my stomach, and followed my husband into the room where I was going to end his lies. To understand why Kevin thought he could crush me, you have to understand who I was in our marriage. I have never been the loudest person in the room. Even as a child, I was the quiet one in the corner, reading a book or organizing my toys in neat rows. I didn't need to be the center of attention. I liked order. I liked things to make sense. When I met Kevin, he was everything I wasn't. He was loud, funny, and full of big energy. He walked into a party and everyone looked at him. He could charm anyone. He charmed me right away. I thought we were a good balance. He provided the excitement and I provided the foundation. In the beginning, he appreciated it. He called me his rock. He said he would be lost without me keeping his life together. And he was right, he would have been lost. Kevin was terrible with details. He forgot bill due dates. He double-booked appointments. He spent money without thinking about tomorrow. I took over everything. I was happy to do it. I thought that's what a good wife did. I wanted to support him so he could focus on his career in sales. Every Sunday night, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a calculator. I paid the mortgage. I paid the electric bill, the car payments, the insurance. I balanced our checking account down to the last penny. I created spreadsheets for our savings goals. We wanted to buy a bigger house one day. We talked about having children. I tracked every dollar we put aside for those dreams. Kevin never saw the spreadsheets. He never asked about the bank accounts unless he wanted to buy something big. "Hey Hayes," he would say, using his nickname for me. "Can we afford this trip to Vegas with the guys?" I would look at the budget. I would move things around. I would sacrifice something I wanted, a new winter coat, a weekend getaway for just the two of us, so I could say yes to him. "Yes, Kevin, we can afford it." He would kiss my cheek and say, "You're the best, babe." Then he would go pack his bag and leave me home alone for the weekend. Over the years, the appreciation stopped. My work became invisible to him. He expected the bills to be paid. He expected clean clothes in the closet and food in the fridge. He expected his life to run smoothly without him having to lift a finger. He started to see my quiet nature not as strength, but as dullness. "You need to loosen up, Hazel," he would say when I wanted to stay in on a Friday night after a long week of work. I had a job too as a database manager for a logistics company. My job was demanding, I was tired. "You're always so serious," he said. "It's boring." That word hurt more than anything. Boring. I wasn't boring. I was responsible. I was keeping a roof over our heads while he was out networking at bars until 2 in the morning. He saw himself as the great provider because his paycheck was bigger than mine. He liked to brag about his commissions. "I had a killer month, Hazel," he would say, throwing his suit jacket on the chair I had just tidied. "Dinner is on me tonight. Let's go somewhere expensive." He didn't know that his killer month barely covered the credit card debt he had racked up the month before on golf outings and fancy lunches. I moved money from savings to cover his spending so he wouldn't feel embarrassed. I protected his ego. I made myself smaller so he could feel bigger. He mistook my competence for simple helpfulness. He thought anyone could do what I did. He thought I was just his assistant at home, someone to handle the boring stuff while he lived the real life. He forgot that I was the one who knew where every dollar went. He forgot that I had the passwords to everything. He forgot that my quiet brain was like a steel trap, remembering dates, numbers, and promises. He saw a mouse. He didn't see the person holding the keys to his entire existence. When he decided to leave me for Sophie, someone louder, shinier, and less boring, he thought I would just fade away. He thought he could tell his lawyer to give me the minimum, and I would accept it because I was too weak to fight. He thought the person who built the foundation of his life wouldn't know how to tear it down. It was the biggest mistake of his life, and it all started with a simple mistake of his own. A slip-up that my quiet, organized brain caught immediately. The end of my marriage didn't start with a dramatic scream or a slamming door. It started on a Tuesday evening in November. It was raining hard outside, a cold, miserable rain that tapped against the kitchen windows. I was in the kitchen making lasagna. It was Kevin's favorite meal. I made it from scratch, simmering the sauce for hours the way he liked. I was trying. Things had been distant between us for months. He was working late more often. He was snapping at me for small things. I thought if I made his favorite dinner, maybe we could sit down and talk. Maybe we could reconnect. I heard the garage door open around 7 o'clock. I felt that familiar little jump in my stomach, part hope, part anxiety. Which Kevin was walking through the door tonight? The charming husband or the cold stranger? He came in through the mudroom door. He was shaking rain off his expensive wool coat. "Hey," he said. He didn't look at me. He seemed distracted, buzzing with a strange energy. He wasn't angry, which was a relief, but he wasn't warm either. He seemed like his mind was somewhere else entirely. "Hi, honey," I said. "Dinner is almost ready, it's lasagna." "Oh, sounds good," he said, but he was already walking out of the kitchen toward the stairs. "I need to shower first. I feel gross from the travel." He had been away for 3 days on a business trip to Chicago. At least, that's what he told me. "Okay, don't take too long," I called after him. I turned off the oven. I walked into the mudroom where he had hung his coat. The coat was soaking wet. I knew if it dried like that, it would smell musty. I took the coat off the hook to hang it over a chair near the radiator so it would dry properly. That's who I was, always taking care of the little things for him. As I moved the coat, I felt something stiff in the inside pocket. It was a piece of paper. I didn't think anything of it. Kevin was always shoving receipts in his pockets and forgetting them. Part of my routine was emptying his pockets before I took things to the dry cleaner so he wouldn't lose anything important. I reached into the silky lining of the pocket and pulled out the paper. It was damp from the rain. It was a receipt. I started to crumple it up to throw it in the trash, but the logo at the top caught my eye. It wasn't for gas or a business dinner. It was a fancy script logo, Adler's Fine Jewelry. I stopped. My breath caught in my throat. Adler's was the most expensive jewelry store in the city. Kevin had never bought me anything from there. Our wedding rings came from a nice but modest chain store in the mall. I smoothed the damp paper out on the mudroom bench. I stared at the numbers. The total at the bottom was $5,250. $5,000. My hands started to shake. I felt a cold chill spread through my chest. What did he buy for $5,000? I looked at the item description. 18,000 gold diamond tennis bracelet. A bracelet. I looked down at my own wrist. It was bare except for my practical watch. Maybe it was for me. Our anniversary was coming up in 2 months. Maybe he was planning way ahead, but Kevin never planned ahead. He was a last-minute shopper, usually buying me a gift card on the day of the event. Then my eyes moved to the top of the receipt, to the date and time. Date, November 14. Time, 1:45 p.m. Location, Adler's Fine Jewelry, downtown branch. November 14th was yesterday. Yesterday at 1:45 p.m., Kevin was supposed to be in Chicago. He told me he was in all-day meetings with a difficult client. He told me he was swamped. I stared at that date. The numbers seemed to burn into my eyes. If he was in Chicago, how was he buying a $5,000 bracelet in our city at lunchtime on a Monday? The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The smell of the lasagna from the kitchen suddenly made me feel sick. The sound of the shower running upstairs felt distant. Everything I thought I knew about my life in that moment cracked. It was a hairline fracture, thin and sharp. I wasn't sad yet, I was in shock. My brain, the organized, logical brain, was trying to find a reason. Maybe the receipt date was wrong. Maybe he bought it online and this was just the confirmation. But I knew, deep down in the pit of my stomach, I knew, he wasn't in Chicago, he was here, and he was buying diamond jewelry that wasn't for me. I heard the water turn off upstairs. He would be coming down soon, smelling like soap, expecting his favorite dinner. He would sit across from me and lie about his trip to Chicago. I folded the damp receipt carefully. I didn't put it back in his pocket. I put it in the pocket of my own jeans. It felt hot against my thigh. I walked back into the kitchen. I felt numb. I felt like a ghost in my own house. I served the lasagna. I sat down opposite my husband. "How were the meetings in Chicago?" I asked. My voice sounded normal. It amazed me that my voice could sound normal when my world was falling apart. He took a big bite of lasagna. "Grueling," he said with a sigh. "Those guys are tough. We were stuck in a conference room for 10 hours yesterday. I barely saw the light of day." He looked me right in the eyes when he said it. He lied so easily. It was terrifying. I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the man I loved, and I saw a stranger who could betray me without blinking. That receipt in my pocket was the first crack. And now that I knew it was there, I knew the whole foundation was about to crumble. Dinner was agony. Every word Kevin said felt like another lie piling up on the table between us. I pushed my food around my plate. My stomach twisted into knots. "You're not hungry?" he asked, shoveling a second helping onto his plate. "Just tired," I said quietly. He didn't press it. He didn't really care. He talked about work, about the imaginary Chicago trip, adding details that I now knew were total fiction. He talked about the bad coffee in the conference room and how tired he was of travel. I listened. I nodded. I played the part of the supportive wife. But inside, a cold, hard clarity was taking over. I needed proof. The receipt was a smoking gun, but I needed to see the bullet. After dinner, he went into the living room to watch a basketball game. "I'm just gonna zone out for a bit, hun," he said. "Okay, I have some work to catch up on," I said. It was the perfect excuse. He never questioned me working on my laptop. I went into our home office and closed the door. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. My hands were steady now. The shock had worn off, replaced by a grim determination. I didn't log into my work email. I opened a private browser window. I started with Facebook. Kevin wasn't very active there, mostly just family photos and old college friends. I scrolled through his recent activity. Nothing, no new friends, no suspicious comments. I moved to Instagram. Kevin used this more. He liked to follow athletes, car accounts, and people he met for business. I went to his profile. I looked at who he was following. There were hundreds of accounts. I started scrolling through the list, looking for anything that stood out. I didn't know what I was looking for. A name, a face. I scanned past the usual male names, partners he worked with, guys from his gym. Then I saw it, near the top of his recently followed list, Sophie G Designs. The profile picture was tiny, but I could see a flash of blonde hair and a bright smile. My heart gave a painful thud against my ribs. I clicked on the name. Her profile was public. She wanted to be seen. Her bio read, "Interior designer, city girl, lover of beautiful things." I started scrolling through her photos. She was young, beautiful. She looked like the kind of woman who never worried about paying an electric bill. She had photos of expensive lattes, designer shoes, aesthetically pleasing hotel lobbies. I scrolled back to yesterday, November 14th. There it was. A photo posted around 6 p.m. It was a close-up shot of her hand holding a glass of champagne. The background was blurry, but it looked like a fancy hotel bar, the kind with velvet chairs and dim lighting. On her wrist was a bracelet. It was unmistakable. An 18,000 gold tennis bracelet with small, glittering diamonds. It caught the light perfectly. It looked brand new. I leaned closer to the screen, my eyes burning. It was the bracelet from the receipt. The $5,000 bracelet Kevin bought while he was supposed to be in meetings in Chicago. I read the caption. "Champagne Tuesdays and sparkly new things. Spoiled by the best guy. Number blessed, number date night, number noobling the best guy." I felt a physical sickness rise in my throat. I had to swallow hard to keep from gagging. He wasn't just having a fling. This wasn't a one-night mistake on a lonely business trip. He was dating her. He was taking her out on date nights, in our own city, while I was at home making his favorite lasagna and worrying about his stressful week. I looked at the comments. Her friends were gushing. "OMG Sophie, it's gorgeous. Who is the mystery man?" Sophie replied with winking emojis and heart emojis. She was loving the attention. I kept scrolling through her feed. I saw other clues now that I knew what to look for. A photo from 2 weeks ago of 2 dinners at an expensive steakhouse, Kevin's favorite. A picture from a month ago showing the interior of a luxury car that looked exactly like Kevin's BMW. The pieces clicked together. This had been going on for weeks, maybe months. While I was balancing our budget and moving money to pay off his credit cards, he was spending thousands on this girl. I didn't cry. I sat there in the quiet office, the blue light of the laptop screen illuminating my face, and I felt absolutely nothing but cold reality. The grief would come later. I knew that. The heartbreak would arrive and try to drown me. But right now, I was in survival mode. The organized part of my brain took over completely. I didn't close the tab. I started taking screenshots. I screenshot the photo of the bracelet. I screenshot the caption. I screenshot the date and time. I went back and screenshot the dinner photos and the car photo. I saved everything into a new folder on my desktop. I named the folder simply, Proof. I had the receipt in my pocket. I had the photos on my computer. It was confirmed. My marriage was a lie. I closed the laptop. I stood up and walked out of the office. I walked into the living room. Kevin was laughing at something on the TV. He looked relaxed, happy. He had no idea that his entire world had just shifted. "Done with work?" he asked, not looking away from the screen. "Yes," I said, "I'm done." He didn't hear the double meaning in my words. "I'm going up to bed," I said. "Okay, babe. I'll be up soon." I walked up the stairs to the bedroom we had shared for 7 years. I went into the closet and looked at his clothes. I looked at the life we had built. It was all tainted now. Every memory felt dirty. I changed into my pajamas and lay down on my side of the bed. I stared at the ceiling in the dark. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't confront him yet, not with just a receipt and some Instagram photos. If I confronted him now, he would lie. He would gaslight me. He would say I was crazy, paranoid. He would hide his tracks better. I needed more. I needed to know how deep this went. I needed to know how much of our money he had spent on her. I needed undeniable proof that would stand up in court. Kevin thought I was weak. He thought I was stupid. He was about to find out just how dangerous a quiet, organized woman could be. I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep. I began to plan. The next morning, Kevin left for work as usual. He kissed my cheek and told me he had a busy day ahead. I smiled and told him to drive safely. It was the first lie I told him in 7 years. It felt surprisingly easy. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I went to work. I didn't go to my actual job. I called in sick. I had more important work to do. I sat at the kitchen table with a pot of coffee and my laptop. I opened a new spreadsheet. I named the file simply, Balance. I have always been the one to handle the finances. Kevin liked it that way because he was lazy. He didn't want to think about bills or savings. He just wanted to swipe his card and have it work. Because of this, I had access to everything. Passwords, PIN numbers, account history, it was all in my head or saved on my secure drive. I started with the joint checking account. This was the account where our paychecks went. It was supposed to be for household expenses, the mortgage, groceries, utilities. I pulled the statements for the last 12 months. I went through them line by line. I found the obvious things first. Cash withdrawals, $200 here, $300 there. It started small about 6 months ago, then the amounts got bigger. Then I saw the transfers. There were transfers to an account I didn't recognize. They were labeled consulting in the notes section. Kevin didn't have a consulting business. He was a sales director. I traced the account number. It was an online bank, the kind that is easy to set up. I used his social security number, which I knew by heart, to reset the password for that online bank. I logged in. It wasn't a business account. It was a slush fund. He had been moving money from our joint savings, money we were saving for a bigger house, for a future baby, into this private account. And from there, the money flowed out like water. I saw transactions for Sophie G Designs. He was paying her directly. Venmo payments labeled rent help and car payment. My stomach turned. He wasn't just buying her dinner. He was supporting her. He was paying for her apartment while I was looking for coupons to save money on groceries. I entered every single stolen dollar into my spreadsheet. October 4. $1,200 transfer to external account. October 12. $350 steakhouse dinner, Sophie's birthday. October 15. $800 weekend hotel stay, claimed business trip. The numbers added up fast. In just 6 months, he had drained nearly $25,000 from our shared life. But then I found something even worse. I looked at our investment account. This was the account where I had put my inheritance. My grandmother left me $50,000 when she passed away 3 years ago. I had put it away for a rainy day. I told Kevin it was our safety net. I logged in. The balance was 0. I stared at the screen. I refreshed the page, hoping it was a mistake. Balance, $0. I clicked on the transaction history. 3 months ago, there was a withdrawal for the full amount. $50,000. Where did it go? I traced it. It went to a title company. He had used my grandmother's money she saved her whole life to give me, to put a down payment on a condo. I searched the address of the condo on the county property records website. Owner, Kevin Bennett. He bought a condo. He didn't put Sophie's name on it, which was smart for him, but he used my money to buy a bachelor pad for himself and his mistress. I sat back in my chair. The house was silent. This wasn't just cheating. This was theft. This was financial abuse. He had looked me in the eye every day for 3 months knowing he had stolen my inheritance. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the coffee mug against the wall. I just typed. August 20, $50,000, unauthorized withdrawal, down payment on condo unit $4 billion. I documented everything. I downloaded every statement. I printed every transaction receipt. I built a paper trail so thick and so detailed that he would never be able to deny it. By the time the sun went down, I had a complete picture of his betrayal. He thought he was clever. He thought I was just the boring wife who paid the electric bill. He forgot that I was a professional data manager. He forgot that numbers are my language, and the numbers were telling a story that was going to destroy him. For the next 4 weeks, I lived a double life. To Kevin, I was the same Hazel as always. I cooked his dinner. I washed his clothes. I listened to him complain about his boss. I even asked him about his business trips with a smile, nodding while he lied to my face. It was exhausting. Every time he touched me, I wanted to flinch. Every time he called me babe, I wanted to vomit. But I had to be patient. One night, we were in the kitchen. He was looking at his phone, smiling at a text message. I knew it was from her. "Who's that?" I asked casually, wiping down the counter. He jumped a little. "Oh, just Dave from the office, sending a funny meme." "That's nice," I said. I turned my back to him so he couldn't see my eyes. They were cold. I was gathering the final pieces of the puzzle. I needed to know about his debts. I knew Kevin liked to gamble occasionally. He used to go to the casino with his friends maybe twice a year. But as I went deeper into the credit card statements, I saw charges for online betting sites. DraftKings, FanDuel, PokerStars. He was losing money, a lot of it. He was chasing his losses. When he lost $1,000, he would bet $2,000 to try and win it back. He was spiraling. That explained why he stole my inheritance. He wasn't just funding Sophie, he was covering his own mess. He was desperate. I added this to the balance file. Gambling losses, year to date, $18,500. I also found out he hadn't paid the mortgage on our house for 2 months. He had intercepted the mail so I wouldn't see the late notices. He told me he was handling it online. He was setting me up to lose everything. If I hadn't looked, we would have gone into foreclosure while he moved into his new condo with Sophie. The betrayal was total. He wasn't just leaving me, he was trying to ruin me on his way out. This realization killed the last bit of love I had for him. There was no sadness left, only a cold, hard need for justice. I started moving my own pieces on the board. I opened a new bank account at a different bank, one he didn't know about. I started moving my paycheck there immediately. I contacted the credit card companies and removed my name from the joint cards. I froze my credit so he couldn't open any new loans in my name. I made copies of his passport, his driver's license, and his social security card. I took photos of the expensive watches he bought with our money. I took photos of his golf clubs. I cataloged every asset we owned. I did all of this while he slept next to me, snoring peacefully, dreaming of his new life. He thought he was the main character of this story. He thought I was just an extra, a background character who would fade away when he was done with me. He didn't know that the background character was rewriting the script. By the end of the month, I was ready. I had the file. I had the evidence. I had the rage packed down into a tight, heavy ball in my chest. It was time to get a lawyer. I didn't pick a lawyer from a billboard. I did my research. I looked for a divorce attorney who specialized in financial fraud. I found Harold Whitman. His office wasn't fancy. It was in a quiet brick building downtown. It smelled like old paper and coffee. Harold was an older man with wire-rimmed glasses and a calm voice. He didn't look like a shark. He looked like a librarian. That was exactly what I wanted. I sat in his office and placed my binder on his desk. It was 3 inches thick. "What is this?" Harold asked. "This is everything," I said. "Bank statements, property records, proof of adultery, proof of theft." Proof of gambling debts. Harold opened the binder. He flipped through the pages. He adjusted his glasses. He read for 10 minutes without saying a word. When he finally looked up, there was a glimmer of respect in his eyes. "You did all this yourself?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Hazel," he said, leaning back. "Most people come in here crying with no idea what their spouse owns or owes. You have just done 90% of my job for me." "I want everything back, Harold," I said. "I don't care about the marriage. He can have the divorce, but I want my grandmother's money back. I want the house. I want him to pay for what he stole." Harold nodded. "We can do that, but we have to be smart, we have to be strategic." "What do you suggest?" "We let him think he's winning," Harold said. He explained the plan. It was called sandbagging. We would file for divorce, but we would keep the petition vague. We wouldn't mention the fraud yet. We wouldn't mention the condo or Sophie. We would let Kevin think I was just a sad, heartbroken woman who wanted out. We would let him get confident. We would let him come to the settlement conference thinking he could bully me into a bad deal. "If he thinks you know nothing, he will be sloppy," Harold said. "He will lie on his financial disclosure forms. He will hide assets, and once he lies to the court under oath, we will drop this binder on the table. And then the judge will destroy him," Harold said simply. I liked this plan. It fit me. It was quiet. It was precise. "Do it," I said. 2 days later, Kevin was served with the divorce papers at work. He came home storming. He slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. "What is this, Hazel?" he screamed, waving the papers in my face. I was sitting on the couch, reading a book. I marked my page carefully before looking up. "It's a divorce, Kevin. I know about Sophie." I kept it simple. I didn't mention the money. I didn't mention the condo. He stopped yelling. He looked surprised, then relieved. He let out a laugh. "Oh, well, that makes this easier." He sat down in the armchair, crossing his legs. The arrogance returned instantly. "Look, Hazel, I was going to tell you anyway. Sophie and I. We're in love, she understands me. We have a connection I never had with you." "Okay," I said. "I'm not going to be the bad guy here," he said, leaning forward. "But let's be realistic. You can't afford this house on your own. I've been carrying us for years." It took every ounce of strength I had not to laugh in his face. "Carrying us? He hadn't paid the mortgage in 2 months. I have a lawyer," he continued. "A shark. If you try to fight me, Hazel, I will crush you. I'll make sure you walk away with nothing, so just sign what I give you and we can end this." "I have a lawyer too," I said softly. He sneered. "Who?" "Some strip mall guy." "Just a lawyer," I said. "Fine," Kevin said, standing up. "Do it the hard way, but don't come crying to me when you're living in a studio apartment." He went upstairs to pack a bag. He moved out that night. He moved straight into the condo bought with my grandmother's money. I locked the door behind him. I slid the deadbolt into place. The game was on. The day of the final hearing arrived. This brings us back to the moment in the hallway, Kevin whispering in my ear, Sophie in her red dress, the promise that he would take everything. We walked into the courtroom. It was quiet and cold. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Reynolds, sat high up on the bench. Kevin's lawyer, the loud man with the shiny briefcase, stood up first. "Your Honor," he boomed. "My client, Mr. Bennett, has been the sole provider for this marriage. He is requesting the sale of the marital home. He is generous enough to offer Mrs. Bennett a small settlement, but we deny any request for alimony. The marriage has simply run its course." Kevin sat there nodding, looking smug. He had submitted his financial disclosure form. On it, he listed his assets. He listed the house. He listed the car. He did not list the condo. He did not list the online bank account. He did not list the gambling debts. He had lied under oath, just like Harold said he would. Judge Reynolds looked at Harold. "Mr. Whitman, does your client agree to these terms?" Harold stood up slowly. He adjusted his glasses. "No, Your Honor. We do not." Kevin rolled his eyes. Sophie sighed loudly from the gallery. "We believe Mr. Bennett's financial disclosure is incomplete," Harold said politely. "Incomplete?" Kevin's lawyer scoffed. "My client has been fully transparent." "If I may," Harold said. He picked up the heavy binder. He walked to the front of the room. He handed one copy to the judge and one copy to Kevin's lawyer. "Exhibit A," Harold said. "Bank records showing the transfer of $50,000 of Mrs. Bennett's separate inheritance money into an account solely controlled by Mr. Bennett." Kevin froze. He stopped slouching. He sat up very straight. "Exhibit B," Harold continued. "Property records for a condominium at 400 River Street, purchased in Mr. Bennett's name using those stolen funds. This asset was not disclosed on his financial affidavit. The room went silent. The judge flipped through the pages. Her face grew dark. Exhibit C, Harold said, his voice getting a little harder. Credit card statements showing over $20,000 spent on luxury items, travel, and payments to a Miss Sophie Grier. Harold gestured to Sophie in the back row. Everyone turned to look at her. She shrank down in her seat, her face turning bright red. And finally, Exhibit D, Harold said, records of $18,000 in gambling losses funded by marital assets. Kevin was pale now. He looked like he was going to be sick. He looked at his lawyer, but his lawyer was reading the binder with a look of horror. His lawyer realized his client had lied to him too. Mr. Bennett, Judge Reynolds said. Her voice was like ice. Is this true? Kevin stammered. I can explain. I was going to pay it back. You swore under oath that you disclosed all assets, the judge snapped. You committed perjury in my courtroom. Kevin's lawyer tried to stand up. Your Honor, sit down, the judge ordered. She looked at Kevin. You have dissipated marital assets to fund an affair and a gambling addiction. You have stolen from your wife's inheritance, and you have lied to this court. Kevin looked at me. For the first time he saw me, he didn't see the weak, boring wife. He saw the woman who had documented every single lie. He saw the precision. He saw the competence. He saw that he had lost. I looked back at him. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just watched him crumble. I am invalidating your previous settlement offer, Judge Reynolds said. I am ruling that the condominium is marital property to be awarded immediately to Mrs. Bennett to repay the stolen inheritance. The marital home will be awarded to Mrs. Bennett. Mr. Bennett, you will assume full responsibility for all gambling debts and credit card debts solely in your name. Kevin's mouth fell open. But, that's everything. I'll have nothing. You should have thought of that before you stole from your wife, the judge said. Court adjourned. The gavel banged. It was the best sound I had ever heard. Kevin sat in his chair, stunned. He was ruined. He had no house, he had no condo, he had massive debt. I stood up and gathered my things. I walked past his table. Hazel, he whispered. He looked desperate. Hazel, please, we can talk about this. I can't. I don't have anywhere to go. I stopped. I looked at him one last time. You're a provider, Kevin, I said calmly. I'm sure you'll figure it out. I walked out of the courtroom. In the hallway, Sophie was waiting. She wasn't smiling anymore. She looked furious. You took the condo, she hissed at me. That was supposed to be our place. It was bought with my grandmother's money, I said. It was never yours. And by the way, Kevin is broke. He has about $40,000 in debt and no assets. Good luck with that. Sophie's eyes went wide. She looked at the courtroom door where Kevin was still sitting, then she looked at the exit. She didn't wait for him. She turned on her expensive heel and walked out the door. She was done. The money was gone, so she was gone. I walked out of the courthouse alone. The sun was shining. The air felt fresh and clean. I walked to my car. I sat in the driver's seat and put my hands on the steering wheel. I thought I would cry. I thought I would feel a massive release of emotion. But instead, I just felt light. The heavy weight of the last 7 years was gone. The weight of managing Kevin's life, of hiding his flaws, of making myself small so he could feel big, it was all gone. I had my house. I had my grandmother's money back in the form of a condo I would sell. I had my dignity. I drove home. My house was quiet. It was mine. I went into the kitchen and made myself a cup of tea. I sat at the table where I used to pay the bills. I opened my laptop. I opened the file named Balance. I looked at the final column. It showed a positive net worth. It showed freedom. I closed the file and dragged it to the trash bin. I emptied the trash. I didn't need to track the lies anymore. The account was settled. I took a sip of tea and looked out the window at the garden. I had been neglected for a long time, just like the weeds in the backyard. But now, I had time. I had resources. I could grow whatever I wanted. Kevin wanted to take everything from me. In the end, he only took the burden of being his wife. And he gave me back myself. That was the best trade I could have ever made. Thank you for reading my story. If you've ever had to be the strong one in silence, or if you believe that the truth always comes out in the end, please like this video and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, do you think Kevin deserved what he got? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Stay strong.